Yo, what's up guys? So this one is a little bit different than usual. It's a tutorial, kind of. Um, it's also just my process of working through a scene. This will be a bigger one, so bear with me. What I have here is the DAS character with the materials already set up, and to get a look into that, there's a tutorial on my channel where I'm describing a workflow between DAS and Cinema. And what I did now was just drag the torso map into Photoshop because I want to mask out some of the torso inside Cinema 4D. You could do this in Substance Painter, but for what I wanted to do, I thought it would just be easier to do that within Photoshop, and you can just see me carefully going around and masking some aspects um, that I want to have see-through in the end. So what I'm masking right now is something that I would like to be specular inside Cinema 4D. So you could basically see inside of her body through those masks, because the model I imported has like this cyber skeleton inside her that gets some really dope looks done, like when you look through her. So now I'm just basically exporting out a black and white alpha matte that can drive the amount between the mixed material and the speculum, between the torso material and the specular material. So you can see me dragging in the mix and a regular material, which I will turn into a specular. Um, Plug both of them in and just copy the torso map because I know where I saved it, and plug in that into the amount. As you can see, we need to invert it. So either we invert the material selection or we just invert the texture. Both is doable. Yeah, I enable fake shadows for the specular for now, so it works with the light flowing through the scene. And I just replace the torso material. As you can see, it's already there in the viewport. And yeah, so I make some additional shapes, um, just so there's a bit more of it. Yeah, nothing more to say on that part. Just fill it up, and then I duplicate it and mirror it and make sure it's centered in the scene. So I merge them together and then Command T and center it and save it out again. And I will be doing the same for the face, just not as much. I just want to have like one window where you have where you can see through the face inside of her head and see all those cyber insides, just so you get that mechanical touch. So there you can already see how it's looking. I'm just adjusting my render settings, and now I'll just speed up a bit. That's the regular material process. I'm just plugging in the opacity map for the hair and um, make sure that the eyebrows match the hair, and don't worry about the underlying skin texture eyebrows. Those will be rid of later. I'm plugging in hdri. That's all just basic workflow DAS stuff, Cinema 4D stuff I mean, sorry. Yeah, get an hdri or get an visible environment driven by an RGB spectrum. Now I just copied the skin material, which I'm replacing right now because I already had that made from another scene. Now I'm just changing the values of some materials. I'm doing the same for the face now. I already had some shapes pre-applied earlier, but I just wanted to get a more clean look, a more curved and simple look, because everything else was a bit too complicated and kind of distracting overall. Um, just replace that mask I saved out before, and then reload the texture, and now it's adjusted. So what I did for the cyber insides is that for most of it, I basically just turned those diffuse or glossy materials into specular, just just so the shapes could play with each other and bounce light off of each other. Yeah, now I'm doing the same for the face and sides. Make sure that fake shadows is ticked so light is going through. Um, yeah, that's the base of it. That's the whole base. I'm just doing the commentating after the fact, as you can tell. Um, yeah, so now there's tubes inside those cyborg parts, and those tubes are fairly small, so I end up using them as a light source, which I already did quite a few times. Yeah, I think you haven't seen those works yet because I wasn't able to share them yet. But yeah, this gets a cool look, especially if you end up changing the specular material. But we'll get to that in a second. Now I'm just removing those tubes from inside her torso because I just want them glowing inside the head. I'm just tweaking the texture. I just added a projection map, um, my projection node. So yeah, now I'm just tweaking the specular, adding 2 roughness maps inside a mix. And that's basically it. There's nothing more to it. I don't think I'll even go back to the material. Yeah, crank up the index and cranked up the index, and I think I'll just leave it at that. So now we have that glow on the face going on and beneath her shoulders. So there, my octane is acting funny right now. What I'm doing now is adding a displacement, so those specular windows are kind of branching out, like branching outwards, but not too much. I just want it to be a little bit, so it's like at, I think I end up having it at point 0.06 or something. Um, yeah, just so there's a sense of um, what should you call it? I'm not even sure. Just so it's not even with the face and you have the assumption that it's really something sticking out of the body. Now I'm just playing with values. 1 is obviously way too much. So yeah, I stick with 0.6, zero point 0.06 I mean. Um, and yeah, here I'm just doing the same for the torso. 0.06, 4K resolution, since it's not that much of a complicated map. It's fine calculating it. Um, yeah, so that's basically it. Just to get a bit of difference going on between the specular material or the specular shapes and the skin itself. Oh, and as for the skin, there's a little bit of subsurface scattering going on, which always is kind of harder with darker skin. I haven't figured that out quite yet. Um, but yeah, no, I just plugged in a cloth surface for the teeth because they're too far apart for my taste, and I just didn't want to export new ones. So yeah, I just changed up the values, deleted made sure the subdivisions are 0 because we don't need them, and ended up going 0.05, just so there's a bit of light going through, but not too much. Now I'm adding a backlight, I think. Yeah, that's the big backlight. Usually I just plug in a texture and barely ever play with the distribution channel, but this time I am playing with it, and I end up plugging in like I think a rainbowy holographic type texture. Yeah, so I'll plug in Octane image texture, clear the top one because I don't need that for now, and then I go search for a texture, and I have those saved from quite a while back. And yeah, make sure the opacity of the light source itself is down, and this is already giving me a look that I really like with the orange on the left and the blue green on the right. So I keep it at that, I think, and I'll do the same with the face. So I just copy the light source and add another texture, just play around just to get a bit of lighting going on in the face, but not too much. Yeah, you see me jumping a lot in this video. I didn't want to have it be too long, still kind of condensed, but it'll end up being like 45 minutes, something like that anyways. I just had to cut and speed up the clips so that it wouldn't get too much on you guys. Yeah, so I left it at that, just a little bit of light. Now I'm just copying all the items that I would need and connecting them to turn them into a volume measure because I want to do some X particle stuff. So this can act as the collider. I just wanted to make sure that the polygon count isn't too high and too crazy. Um, Otherwise my calculations would be kind of stressful. Um, yeah, so I just play with the values. I think I end up going 1.5, even less, 1.4 it seems. Yeah. So just turn that into the volume measure, make sure that it's all there, and turn that into an editable object. Add a smoothing layer so it's, well, more smooth. Connect those, and yeah, just now I just have an X particle scene, fairly simple in there. As you can see, the volume measure above my octane lights is acting as the X particles collider object. For now I have just one emitter. I'm just playing around with settings because I wasn't too sure what kind of look I was going for. I ended up changing the emitter rate. Yeah, it's a shot count from frame 1, 5000, and yeah, the generator is the OVDB measure. There I'm just playing with the settings again, add some filters. I don't want to get too in depth on X particles because well, I guess I'm fairly new to it as well, and it's really just some basic stuff. So if you watch a basic X particles tutorial, you'll get a lot of what I'm doing immediately. So yeah, it's just all about playing with the settings, getting a look that you're liking, and I end up copying those emitters like 4 times. So I have like 4 emitters and 4 OVDB measures. You could have 1 OVDB measure and 4 emitters, but I ended up changing the settings a bit on each of them. So they all look a bit different in terms of how they react to, in terms of how the meshes react and look. So I'm just getting a feel for it, and then I'm duplicating all of them. And yeah, I duplicated all of them and just X particle cached it, as you can see. And now I know that this is what I want to go for. So I disable some of them. Yeah, I move that one down a bit because the initial collider body is a bit too big. So it's floating a bit, but it doesn't matter. It still works. Yeah, so I cached them so the playback would be fine. And then I'm just getting a feel for the material. I end up going with purple anyways, with a bit more simple, because that watery, crystally, see-through type material didn't quite work for me. Yeah, so there as you can see at the top, I made some of them editable. The ones I liked, the other ones I just disabled again, and now I'm doing one more emitter, which is driven by not an OVDB measure, but the Skinner. And I'm changing those render settings, those particle settings, so I get a bit more of a fluid look. As you can see, my surface at the top is set to fluid, and then I'm just playing with the settings. With Skinner, I'm just always careful because before I had my new rig, my system would really chug at the Skinner object for whatever reason. But now it seems to work fine, and as you can see, I'm just playing around with the settings, trying to get something that I like, and I'm not even caching that object. I just press pause at a frame I like, and then I'll just make the object editable there, add a smoothing deformer, play around with that, and yeah, so no more X particles for this scene. I just have a few um, nice blobs going on right now, and yeah, so now I'm trying to get a background done. Initially I wanted to get like green leaves at the back, and that would go with the green hair. I wanted to separate, kind of. I wanted to separate it by having the hair be a gradient, which you can see me end up trying later on, but it isn't working too well. And now I'm just adjusting the tree, positioning it and scaling it up and down just so it works. I'll end up dragging them more close to the camera so they would react more with the light. And yeah, what I'm doing right now is just adjusting the materials of the leaves. I turned that into a universal material so I can get the transmission going on. Add a color correction node so I could tweak the color of the leaves so they're more fitting for the hair itself. Now I'm just trying out colors. It's always about experimenting. It's always about trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. And yeah, I just added the transmission and the random walk medium, trying to see if specula would work, but it wouldn't quite go too well with the hdri I'm using. I would need to light that tree separately to get a good look, and I just decided to go back to the universal, and I left it at green for now. Now I'm just repositioning it, I'm scaling it up and down again, rotating the light source at the back to make sure that the light at the left side and the right side will end up fitting for now. So we have that orange glow going on at the left. Fairly simple, just an RGB spectrum driving my octane light. And then I'll do the same for the right side. And now I'm just cranking up the coating layer so they're a bit more reflective, the leaves themselves. Now, yeah, as you can see, I duplicated it and basically just now I duplicated the light, and now I'll turn it to the right. make that blue greenish, so it works with the backlight reflection on the character, so it fits the rim light. Just placing them a bit apart so that they're not colliding with each other, which you wouldn't be able to end up seeing anyways, because I decided to go with depth of field. So they're basically not even, you couldn't even tell that those are plants anymore at the end. But that's just how it goes. Now I'm just scaling out, made the trees editable, zooming out I meant, and then I'm just selecting them and make sure that I invert the selection and to delete the inverted selection so they're a bit less heavy on my scene. Yeah, so just deleting polygons for a better response and render time. I'm just adding a subdivision layer to the leaves so they're a bit more smooth, which I end up not using because you wouldn't see them anyways with the depth of field and it would just add to my render time. Now I'm just experimenting with a bump, seeing if that makes any real difference. Enabling A/B comparison so I can see what's going on. But yeah, it's so minimal that I just ended up not using it. Now I'm just turning everything back on to see how my scene is coming along. Fairly nicely, I guess, at that point. I still wanted to go with the green, but yeah, now I'm just setting up depth of field. As you can see, I pressed the F at the viewport and made sure to select an object. In this case, it was the eye. You can see the focal depth is already the same as the eye. So now I'm just adjusting the aperture. Just trying to get a value I like, I guess. Playing with the settings. All fairly simple. I think I'll leave it at that for now, or I'm not sure if I left it at that. I'm just letting it render out a bit so I can get a sense of what's going on. Maybe I left to go do something else. I'm not even sure at this point. Now I'm going into substance. I added a mask with the face mask applied already. I'm just trying to figure stuff out because my pen pressure isn't working in substance, but that's a problem for another day. I think I kind of know the fix, but if I fix that inside substance, my cinema will crash a lot. So yeah, but that's a problem for another day. Now I'm just playing around with some stuff. Uh, I wasn't quite sure what to do, so I just do some basic scribbly stuff. My initial thought was writing midori above her lips, which is Japanese for green, but I ended up not using it in the end because it was too distracting for me, and you couldn't read the right side anyways, which I knew going into this, but I still wrote it anyways. But yeah, I just wanted to get like a few more extra details inside her face, or on her face rather. Draw a few little tattoos, like tiny small things. I even end up using the color red inside substance, which I did not end up using at the end because that was also a bit too distracting for me, and now I'm just, yeah, just nothing too fancy, just basic trashy ass scribbles, trying to figure out what could work, what doesn't. Yeah, so my plan was to have tattoos and also like some bit more technical stamps, I guess you would call them, above her specular window, which I wanted to extrude a bit inside Cinema. So now I'm just using random ass default substance alpha stamps for my brush and just place them where I think they would work. So I ended up going with the 2 at the top and the big unlock at the bottom, and then I separately exported the layers, one for the tattoos and one for um, the technical stamps. Nothing too fancy. I just exported those and exported the other one, so I had two different sets of opacity maps. And inside Photoshop, I just cranked the contrast up so it would be white and black and not like light gray and black or something. Now I'm just dragging in the initial face material, the mix one, and then another octane material and another mix material, driven by the face tat alpha matte that I saved previously. So there's the base, and then I copy that. This is still the one with the red color, which I'll end up not using at the end, driving the opacity of the new material that's inside the mix, and then the amount driven by the black and white alpha matte from Substance. Now I'm just inverting the selection so it's face and tattoo and not the other way around. Applying the new face material, calling it tats, so it's a bit more clear on what my materials are. And as you can see, works just fine with the opacity alpha matte. And I'm not sure, am I doing the... I don't think I am. I'm just tweaking the settings real quick, seeing if I can end up getting rid of those tiny white borders I think I had, but I'm not too sure. But yeah, I ended up dragging the gamma down for the amount matte, so it's all black and red with no white spots at the edges. And yeah, then I basically do the same with the technical stamps. Oh yeah, right, I had the teeth material. I wanted to have those hearts on the teeth glowing, so I ended up dragging them into Photoshop and just making a mask for them as well. I converted it, replaced it with the old teeth and scene, so there's no confusion as to what is what. Locate them, drag them into Photoshop. I wasn't sure which one it was, so this one wasn't it, but I could have used that one anyway. But yeah, so I dragged that in and just selected the hearts in the middle, or rather selected everything outside of it, inverted the selection, and then made sure I had a mask. So turn them white or black, whatever, just so you have black and white matte. Save that, and then inside Cinema, just turn that teeth material into a universal material, so you can have an emission node going on. Imported the matte, yeah, universal material. I kept a bit of the metallic, and then added the emission, made sure surface brightness is checked. Inverted the mask, of course, so it's just the heart that are emitting from the mask I saved out. And now I'm just dragging in a color correction node, even though I wanted a gradient, wondering what the hell is going on, until I realized, oh, that's not an octane gradient, it's a color correction node. Yeah, so turn the white into green. Oh yeah, no, I did purple for that. I end up going green, and then I end up not using it at all because it was too distracting for me. And now I turn back the other stuff, or I turned on the other stuff, playing around with the lights inside the face again, just trying out new textures, changing the transform or texture projection values, just so until I get something that seems right, which won't happen until the end of this video, where I get something that I like and that I think goes well with the scene. Um, but yeah, you just play around until it clicks for you. And maybe you're unsure of it sometimes. And let me just say, better get rid of that uncertainty and do it until you think you have it right. If you go back to it and then think it sucks, that's another story for another day, but that's just typical artist stuff. You do stuff and then you think, but I could have done this a bit better, but yeah, just go with the flow, stay in the moment, and do what's right for you. As you can see, more experimenting going on, changing the size, the rotation and stuff, the power even. I really hope this is all pretty easy to follow, I hope. Now I'm just turning on things again just to see how the contrast would look, and now I'm doing the same that I did with the tats. I opened the second mix material for the face, and then I added another material for the technical stamps. Now I made sure that I realized the white inside my matte wasn't 100% white, so the cinema material would get a bit milky. So to just avoid that, I just cranked the levels a bit up, made sure the white is really white. Now I'm applying it to the face again. As you can see, it works. It's just a simple mixed material on top of a mixed material on top of a mixed material, I guess. I probably could use the layered materials as well, but yeah, well, why have it easy if you can have it complicated? Now I'm just driving the displacement by the same matte that the amount is driven by, so just so they could stick out a bit. Now I'm experimenting with the hair like I said earlier. I wanted to get like a green purple look going on. I just thought I'd see how the UVs were mapped if I'd just do the map with a gradient, but it didn't work, so I ended up going with a mixed material for the hair as well, purple and green ones, and now I'm just trying to drive it by the OSL gradient, I think. That one didn't work too well. Now I tried paint colors, which didn't work too well either. It just didn't give me the look that I was going for. Maybe I could have had it if I just played around a bit more. But yeah, paint colors and all the OSL textures are amazing in Octane 2020. I haven't played around too much with them, but the looks you get are so beautiful. And as you can see, a lot of those hair colors would work. That yellow orange one, for example, is amazing, but I don't know, it wasn't clicking for this particular scene for me, so I think, yeah, I just said like, nah, I'm not too sure. I tried around a bit more, but I ended up going with green again. Um, yeah, so I tried white, but white wasn't doing it for me either. It all looks cool, but it has to click for you. Um, and of course you have to be mindful of color composition and stuff. So actually the green on green hair wasn't a good idea. That's why I'm changing the background. I thought I could make it work, but I couldn't, so I'm changing the background. Shoutouts Tim, um, who told me immediately after I sent him the first sketch that maybe you shouldn't do green on green, but yeah, I don't know, go fuck yourself. Something along those lines. Yeah, so now I changed the background as you can see, turned the leaves into a more bluish tone, and now I'm getting shoutouts the French Monkey. That's the new Quartz of M crystal asset pack, or rather the plugin. And yeah, you have amazing sliders where you can just create crystals and with all sorts of settings, but I wasn't trying to overthink shit, so I just wanted to get a few simple ones in, just play with the sliders a bit until I was fairly happy. I just wanted to have them float inside the scene or around the scene, I guess, in the air, to have a bit more harsh forms or shapes in there. And yeah, I think I created like 4 of them, and for each one I just played around with the sliders, duplicated it, hit the one below it for that moment so I could create a new one. Yeah, just playing around, playing around, playing around, always sliding down those sliders um, until you get something that looks good, just to get some shape variations in there. Yeah, once again, shoutouts French Monkey. Check the site, check the man. He does some amazing work and delivers some amazing high quality products. If you don't want to end up having the hassle of modifying your crystals one by one, there's an amazing crystal asset packs with clusters, singular ones and stuff. Yeah, so I played around with the material, but I ended up going with the same material as for the purple goo or slime or whatever alien come, I don't know. Um, yeah, that's same material but green transmission. Just turned the purple into green, and now I'm just placing them, trying to get a feel of what works and what doesn't. And now that I had those green crystals, I wasn't too sure of all the colors going on inside the scene, so I just went back to the lights again and played around until I had something I liked. I think this doesn't happen quite yet, but now I'm rotating the hdri, which I haven't done since the beginning of the project, and sometimes that helps. Maybe even switching HDRIs, but yeah. I think each of us or a lot of us have like go-to HDRIs, and yeah, so now I'm just changing values again. I made the background green, for example. Now I'm making it red. And now I'm changing the leaves again, making them red as well. And now it starts to click for me. Now I'm really liking this. So adjusting the crystals once again. And now I go back one more time and change my lights. And that's when it clicked for me. That green, red, orange on the face. I really like that one. I'm just going back to the depth of field settings, trying to rotate the camera a bit. Adjusting the focal length as well, so it works now with my new camera position. Now I'm setting up, now I'm making sure that the color isn't too black on the tattoos, so I just dial it down a bit, make it more brownish. And that's when I think I was done for now. Oh yeah, right. I wanted to get a bit more light going on so the cross was more visible. Additional light sources are always good if you want to highlight certain areas, for example, as I'm doing with the cross now. Now I'm just duplicating some of the droplets to get a bit more going on at the top left, top right, and bottom left. Um, Adjusting some positions. Now I'm making sure that the denoiser is active, and then I'm just going straight into render passes and from there to Photoshop. Yeah, so see you in Photoshop. So now I'm inside Photoshop, opened up the image. I head straight into Lightroom, into Camera Raw. That's under Filters, Camera Raw, and now I'm just adjusting all these settings. Make sure to bring out the max, and just adjusting sliders once again. just to make sure to get every percentage of life you could possibly get out the image, making colors pop, make sure that the contrast is right, just until it feels good to me personally. Sometimes that process could take a while, sometimes it's fairly straightforward. I guess most of the times it is, um, at least the color correction part. So yeah, now I'm just making sure that the purple pops while the red isn't too aggressive and all that stuff. Make sure that the green is a bit more lively. Yeah, something around that. And then make sure that the blues again. I just like to save all my presets. And then I bring in more maps. As you can see, I have some render passes saved. Now I reapply the same camera raw filter to my bloom pass, and then adjust the brightness and intensity of it with levels, bring it back in again, and then just slightly crank it up so it's a bit more dreamy. Mask the glow on the teeth, so that's a bit more defined, but I'll let the rest stay as it is. And now I apply image, I think, yeah, and sharpen it a bit by using high pass instead of sharpen, and then set the layer to overlay. Drag in the C depth mask and make sure to crank the levels a bit because I want the background to be a bit noisy but her face to be clean. And yeah, paste the mask into the layer mask of the applied image and then just add the noise. And now I wanted to get some stuff done which I think I couldn't really do inside Photoshop. Oh yeah, now I'm just cleaning up some spots so the noise would be where I would want it to be. But yeah, so I'm just saving out the image so I could head into After Effects because there's some amazing tools there if you have some plugins for it. Um, I don't do this often, but sometimes it just calls for it. So I opened After Effects and imported my image. Um, yeah, and then I think I ended up applying like 2 effects, I think. Yeah, so I just went with an RGB shift. I wanted to do that, but I wasn't sure why it wasn't working. So I don't know, I gave up on that and just tried something else. Um, yeah, so it's not working at all, so I don't know, I said fuck it, let's do something else. Yeah, this seemed to work nice for me. It's a nice little, almost like a motion blur kind of glow for the edges and the highlights. Yeah, now I'm just adding another distort RGB filter. And just crank the values up a teeny tiny bit. I don't want it to be too crazy. Yeah, something like that looked great to me. Of course the face is all mushed up, so that wouldn't work. Um, Took a screenshot with the FX console, dope ass plugin, shout out Andrew Kramer. It's free as well, so highly recommend that. Um, yeah, just clean it up a bit so not all of those spots are so mushed. Yeah, that looked fine for me. And now I think it's all about, yeah, it was all about details, so I just added in some sparkles, I think. I'm not too sure what else I did for this one. Oh yeah, I erased some more. And it seems like I'm doing nothing at all right now. So yeah, there we go. I apply the image. Yeah, those are the remains of the old bump map that I forgot to exchange. So I'm just trying to fix that problem real quick. Yeah, there. Seems fine. It's okay. It'll do. It doesn't need to be re-rendered in this case. Um, yeah, so now I'm just doing like a few sparkles here and there just to bring out some of the aspects which viewing it on Instagram is basically impossible to notice anyways. Sometimes, of course, sometimes you see it. Um, but yeah, it's fine. It's just a little bit of detail work that brings it together in my opinion. Yeah, and that's about it for this image. I hope you learned some stuff inside this little walkthrough of my workflow or tutorial or whatever the fuck you want to call it. I'm not sure. Um, yeah, I'm really happy of this image and how it turned out, and how sometimes the initial idea isn't always a good idea. So I'm glad I went with the red background instead of the green and trying to separate the hair by a gradient. Um, yeah, so that's basically it. If you have any questions, you can hit me on Instagram. I'll try to answer. It's still a lot to keep up with. It's pretty overwhelming. But yeah, I'll try my best. You can also hit me at my email if you have further questions, or of course in the comments down below. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'll gladly take suggestions for other stuff you want to see. I'm I'll probably put this on YouTube, so shoutouts YouTube. I'm playing around with the thought of doing maybe Skillshare videos, or I want to open a Patreon as well, maybe this year, maybe January, I'm not sure. But yeah, merch coming soon as well, so keep an eye out and make sure to check my work at instagram.com/carlyfetz. And yeah, that's it. Reporting out. Bye bye.